Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, we're going to take an early look at the bonuses and tech tree for the Mapuche, who are the cavalry focused of the new civs coming in the Last Chieftains DLC on February 17th. I don't have access yet to actually test anything, but today they threw just about everything out there, so let's take a look and speculate at how the civ is going to play. First off, they're described as a cavalry encounter unit civilization, interestingly missing the stable and cavalry armor upgrades entirely, but you'll see how they work around that. To start with the tech tree and get a sense of what kind of units you're intended to focus on, the archer line isn't that great, lacking bracer, arbalester, and thumbring. But they have very good skirmishers as we'll see, and a cavalry archer replacement called the bolus rider, along with the slinger, which is now a regional unit for Incas and the 3 new civs. They confirm the bolus rider can slow enemy units, probably with a charge attack, and are especially good at raiding, similar to cavalry archers. But then I mentioned previously that they may have a bonus against cavalry. That's kind of notable, as it means you have an anti-archer, anti-cavalry, and anti-infantry unit at the archery range, fitting with that counter-unit focus of the civilization. Even more surprising is the barracks, where we confirm a speculation I made in the last video turns out to be true, that the Champi warrior is replacing not just eagles, but also the entire militia line. I felt like there were some hints at that, though it's still a little bit surprising, as the militia line is largely defined by being weak to archers, while the Champi is apparently good against those. We'll see how their stats and cost end up blending the militia and eagle lines, and I would love to see how they do against some other melee units head to head, but already it seems like they're an interesting cross between 2 very different units. Other than that, missing squires is pretty notable, so keep in mind their spear line is going to be quite a bit slower than usual in the mid to late game. The siege workshop is okay, but they're lacking quite a few university techs, notably getting bombard but not guard tower, which is a very unusual combination. Essentially, their weapons are a very versatile archery range, champion pikemen at the barracks, mediocre siege, plus a melee cavalry unique unit. Just as a refresher, that castle unique unit deals more damage to already injured enemy units, plus we learned earlier it's good against gunpowder, probably from a bonus. Of course, even beyond the tech tree, we also have some info about their bonuses, which will really help us dig into the direction they want the civilization to go. The first bonus is foragers drop off 20% extra food. Dark Age bonuses are always big for that jump start on your economy, though keep in mind this one is fairly temporary, as you usually run out of berries before Castle Age. There are also issues with overcrowding on berries, and you're probably getting a maximum of 6 villagers taking advantage of this at one time before seeing diminishing returns. I do like the idea of encouraging players to put more than the standard 4 on berries though, and if you drop off 10, you gain 12 food in this case, which is just a straight up extra 150 food, plus put your foragers ahead of shepherds in collection rate. Between this plus a faster moving version of men-at-arms, if that's what Champi end up being, it seems like a lot of synergy in the open. The next bonus is the new settlement building can train spearmen and skirmishers for this civilization only. The settlement is a universal drop-off point for all the new civs plus Inca, so you can straddle it between a woodline and a gold camp plus put farms around it for a lot of value. The fact that for this civ it then works as a production building can then be even more insane value, though we don't know the wood cost just yet. I would guess 150 or possibly even 200 wood on the very high end, as it's so much better than a regular camp. We actually know they don't have regular camps on their tech tree, and this is where you get your eco upgrades. So in a way they can't make it too expensive, or you just won't be able to make a lumber camp early. I already wonder if after building houses, you'll have to chop straggler trees, and I'm getting the sense usual build orders could be thrown out the window with this civ, between settlements and the extra emphasis on berries, which also need a settlement to collect from, so getting wood for all of this might pose an early challenge. Not only does this encourage spear and skirmishers in feudal age, but also seems great in trash wars, as essentially all of your old lumber camps, mines, and mills become production buildings. Doubling down on that idea, their infantry, slingers, and skirmishers then get more HP, increasing through the ages. Between that and the easier production on a couple of those units, you can start to see the civ might bring back the old spear and skirmisher rushes from decades ago. Again, we really get that counter unit vibe coming through here over and over, with less emphasis being put on Champi rushes. The next bonus is their mounted units, the bolus rider at the archery range and Kona at the castle, generate gold when defeating military units. If that sounds familiar, it's because it's a bonus that was given to the Persians a while back, but then taken away. Notably, that doesn't help raiding villagers, and we'll have to see what the gold cost of the mounted units are, but in some situations, that could really help justify their gold cost if they're expected to reclaim at least a bit of it. Keep in mind, they have to get the last hit on a unit to get the 3 gold, so there's some inconsistency to it, but it obviously adds to your late game economy where they'd otherwise lack an eco bonus. And finally, their last bonus is they reveal enemy castles, presumably popping up on your map as they're built. It's a really interesting scouting bonus, which do exist but are pretty rare in the game. Especially seeing castles that are placed but not built yet would be crazy, though I interpret this as just showing up after they're constructed, and not necessarily an early warning system for castle drops, but we'll see. There are still a few ways they could do this that might change its usefulness, and whether they're just revealed through the fog, or if you have an active sight on castles, seeing if it's garrisoning units for example, could give very different levels of information about what units your opponent is massing. Either way, I could see this being kind of amazing in team games, where knowing on Black Forest, or even more so Michi, where castles are being massed, can accidentally reveal an incredible amount of information. Even seeing a castle pop up in your opponent's base on Arena though, is scouting information that normally you wouldn't have. While you could argue still plays into the counter unit idea of this civ, basically by giving them a heads up of what units might be on the way. So those are their bonuses in tech tree, which really give us some things to speculate about in terms of how their very good trash units, gold costing counter units, and cavalry will fit together. We also know their unique techs though, so let's talk about those. The first is that bolus riders, slingers, and skirmishers, so their entire archery range outside of crossbows basically, all deal pass-through damage like a scorpion, which can be researched in Castle Age. We've seen the devs experimenting with this for Thracians in Alexander last year, and presumably the projectiles will do half damage to whatever they hit besides a target. That damage can add up fast, and between that plus more durability on skirmishers and slingers really makes those sound like go-to units. Keep in mind enemy onagers and scorpions deal with all three of these units, so it might not be as overpowered as it sounds, while giving the Kona or even Champy a very important role to add some mobility as a siege deterrent. The other unique tech makes your whole team's castle units, including your own Kona, plus bolus riders from the archery range, 15% cheaper. Out of everything we've seen, this is the one part I'm a little wary of, as while we don't know the cost, and obviously it won't refund previously made units, for so many unique units, cost is a huge lever to balance them, and just slashing those costs by 15% across the board feels like it risks some unintended consequences. The cost efficiency part of me feels like this might swing some soft counters, which combined with your whole team also then seeing enemy castle locations seems like a lot for your team. Maybe the devs felt the counter unit theme here is just inherently a bit weak in team games, so they're explicitly trying to offset that. And again, I don't want to speculate on balance too much without ever having played the civ. Those kind of takes rarely age well. Notice the bolus rider comes out pretty good here, having pass-through damage, having its cost lowered, and generates gold per kill, plus has archer armor upgrades, so it's not even necessarily that squishy when fully upgraded. We'll see what its attack and range are, but it feels like it might be the Mapuche's power unit in the late game, or the closest the civ has to a power unit. And finally, their team bonus, true to form, is that their spearmen and skirmishers have +2 line of sight. I have to say there were a lot of surprises in here, between the Champy officially replacing the militia line, the settlement outright replacing the other camps instead of being in addition to them, the repeated push for skirmishers, slingers, and spears for the civ, with what sound like some very good team game synergies. I should note it's entirely possible the civ falls off hard in the late game, plus requires such a different dark age that players can struggle with them in 1v1s. You really seem to have to be all in on the mindset of counter units, and always on the lookout for enemy siege units as this civ. I'm curious to see after a month of stats what their best and worst civ matchups are, plus the cost of Champy, settlements, and bolus riders are going to be interesting to see. Either way, while Inca were the unofficial counter unit civ, this is that dialed up to 11, and is certainly not a cookie cutter design. So that's my rundown and thoughts on the new info, and I'm sure we'll be getting the 2P and Muisca summaries out soon. Again, keep in mind we really have no idea about balance or how these civs play out until players actually get their hands on them. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.